Hello, hello. Happy Winning Wednesday, guys. We are going to try a noon broadcast. So we have a special guest. As you know, one of my favorite partners is Kevin, and he is from KGM Home Inspection. And we're going to be talking about, as you know, over the last month, we've been talking about investing in real estate and being able to create wealth by purchasing multi-unit buildings. So this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about the things that you want to be cognizant of when you're looking at a building. We're not going to be looking at how the kitchens and baths are updated. Sure, those are great, but the major components, windows, we're going to look at the building itself. So I brought my special guest on, and he's going to talk about the things that you should be really looking for, not to fall into any of the pitfalls and those, what do they call those things? Money pits.
Yes.
So we want to definitely talk about that. So with all that being said, thank you, Kevin, for joining me, and we're going to let you take the floor.
All right. Well, thank you, Wendy, for having me on. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we kind of have almost kind of fallen into a specialization of doing multi-unit buildings, everything from 2 to 8, 10 unit buildings in Chicago. And, we have a lot of investors that call on us. We have even some from out of the country who have never even met other than talking to them via phone or via email. Because they're buying up properties in Chicago right now, there's a lot of that going on. So if you're looking at a property, and we'll just kind of take a 2-flat for example, instead of having 5 or 6 or 4 or whatever different contractors come in to look at different aspects of it, that's where we come in, and we do a full-blown inspection. An inspection on like a 2-flat building is going to be a good 3 to 4 hours, maybe a little bit longer. Definitely, a roof is a big thing on a multi-unit building, especially if they're flat. That can be a huge expense for you if it hasn't been maintained and kept up to date. And I come from a roofing background, so it definitely helps. Not that I don't call on some of my sources from time to time if I think I want an extra set of eyes on it. We will do that as well. But we go through the building, and we do inspect it like we would a residential, but and even though we may say, or you may tell us, hey, we're just going to gut it and start from the bottom up, you still want to know, does it have good bones? How is the plumbing? How is the electrical? How outdated is it? Which is usually the case. Rarely are we going to walk into a building like that where the electrical, in some cases, is still original. Plumbing, still original on some things. Mechanicals, whether it be a boiler, furnace, things of this nature. Probably one of the biggest things we look at too that often can be a big expense, it gets overlooked, is if it has exterior porches and decks. And if especially if it's going up the back side of the side, and even if they have replaced it, we often find a lot of defects in those because they just haven't followed what would be considered a deck prescription from NADRA, which is the North American Deck and Railing Association, which we are certified in with that. So even new decks we find with a lot of defects in them, nothing that can't be repaired or fixed. And then, of course, we have the decks that, quite frankly, I just recommend they shouldn't be walked on until they're replaced. So, that can be a big thing. The other thing is, when we're looking at investment properties, we will look at them from a landlord standpoint. So, we're going to kind of help guide you and give you some information based on liability as if you were a landlord. Kind of a simple example, you walk across your living room and trip on a piece of bad carpet or flooring, you're not going to sue yourself. You have a tenant do that, it could really blow up in your face potentially, even with all the
liabilities.
Big time liabilities as a landlord. So we try and look at it from a little bit different aspect. From now that you're going to have people living there that you are going to be responsible for, everything from the fire alarms to the smoke detectors, CO detectors, stairwells, handrails, all the real simple stuff that could cost you a ton of money.
It'll even start at the front walkway. Really,
even the walkway, the stairs. I mean, these things can all get dragged into litigation. That you may not end up losing a case, but it's still going to cost you money and more, so it's going to cost you time. So we try and make you aware of those things as well when we get into those with investment properties. It's really important that you have a good handle on that.
Yep, it's great. That's great points to make, because the reality is there's a lot of liabilities with a lot of opportunity and rewards that come behind owning a building. There's a lot of liabilities and risks that come behind it. So it's about protecting yourself, guys. Protecting yourself, because this is your investment. Try to also, we're going to be bringing in different people throughout the process to talk about the different vantage points. We're talking inspection. We talked about 2 weeks ago, we talked about financing. We're going to have somebody come on and talking about from insurance perspective, from the attorney's perspective, as well as, you know, creating even a trust or a LLC, because you want, again, if people know that you own buildings, unfortunately, we're in a very litigious society, so we want to make sure your interests are protected, and not everyone is going to take advantage of the fact, oh, well, they own buildings, so let me go ahead and sue them. So you want to make sure that those are protected. So we're going to talk about those things over the next course of the next couple of weeks. Today, we're, like I said, we're going to talk about inspection. So we talk about the things like the stairwell. That's very important, because when you don't choose to shovel the snow, now in the city of Chicago, there is an ordinance. If you don't shovel snow, you can get fined by the city. But the thing is this: the actual structure itself has to be of safe and sound condition. Otherwise, again, if you trip, or even something as simple as you just put a deck on, but unfortunately maybe there was a nail pop and maybe a little baby had walked on top with without shoes coming out to the deck, that could be a liability. So those are all the little things that you can even be dinged on. So it's not to scare you, but it's just to give you the realism behind that these are things that could be a liability. It's something as simple as a nail or a handrail, that make sure the handrails are sturdy, because if you put your handrail, I was just showing a property the other day, and the woman had actually like a little foot cast, and because she put so much pressure on it, the handrail came off. So what if she stumbled and lost her balance and fell? That could have been a liability to the owner. So these are things that you want to make sure that you, again, protect yourself and have the proper coverage. But going back to other items, we wanted to talk about the roof. We talked about the roof. We talked about the deck. Any other things that you would consider major items, Kevin?
Well, potentially the garages. Garages probably get the least amount of attention and maintenance when it comes to multi-unit buildings. And of course, as an investor, you know, more often than not, we're just going to tear it down and leave a parking lot, or they may need to rebuild it. But either way, if it's in bad structural condition, which a good majority of them are, if you have a tenant parking a car in there, the last thing you want to do is have to buy them a new car. If something happens. You know, another aspect is I often work with investors who end up picking up the ball where another investor either ran out of money, they dropped the ball on it, they didn't want the property more, so there might have been some things that had already been remodeled or rehabbed, so to speak. And we often sometimes will find, again, especially older units, where it has a boiler with radiators, where they've actually removed radiators from bedrooms because maybe they were leaking and they didn't replace them. So now you have a room with no heat source. You know, that really needs to be replaced for that. Also, rooms to make sure that they have, you know, egress or ways to get out of, if it's what we consider a sleeping room. Often we'll go into basements, and you know, one of the questions I ask is the basement finished, or you know, is it open? And they say, well, it's sort of finished. There's a garden unit. And what I will tell you is, I'll walk into this garden unit, and it's usually a death trap for whoever's going to be living down there. So you want to be careful with what you walk into. You know, if there's one of these that already has a basement halfway built out and they've been getting rent on it, doesn't necessarily mean it's legal rent. So again, we kind of help guide you through, and you know, we see warning signs and make recommendations to check with, you know, either the local ordinance, the building department, or the city of Chicago, and find out, you know, what is it going to take to make sure that if I'm going to get rent for this, that it's going to be safe. You know, the last thing I want is for someone to be hurt or heaven forbid die if something happened with that, because it's all going to come back and drop at the bottom of your feet.
Yep. And then so we talk about major things, but even something as simple and small, guys, so small but so crucial. Smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, those are going to be also crucial, that you need to make sure that they're all installed in the right areas. Maintenance is going to be very key too. If you have furnace, don't rely, unfortunately, we talk about this all the time as I work with tenants. You put it in the lease, but they'll forget because it's not on top of mind. But make a notation to also make sure to check these are your units, guys, at the end of the day. And are you making sure that even as something as simple as the furnace filters are changed? Because if they're not changed, and believe me, I've seen things that maybe 3 years, 5 years that haven't even changed it, and it's thick layer of dust and dirt. Well, that's making, one, your tenant sick. Two, is making your furnace work harder, and it could cause it to break down, which costs money. So the key is, if you're trying to invest in property, the key is to make money, not always let it be a money pit and waste money. And something as simple as again, furnace filter is going to be very essential. What else? Maybe home warranties on your appliances, that will be also a main
Yes.
thing, you know, because again, unfortunately, I'm not saying all tenants, but there are tenants who at this point, they don't care. It's just about, hey, let me pay you rent, and that's all they really need to do. They don't have to maintain it, but these are things that you always want to protect yourself, because again, it's your pocketbook that we're trying to protect. Now, of course, if people are interested in purchasing property, these are the things you want to look at, but also sellers, I mean, not sellers, just basic landlords. This is not just about if you're interested in purchasing. If you already own, this is a great video for you to also keep in mind, because I think a lot of times if you're not living in the property, unfortunately it's almost become out of sight, out of mind, and so then you don't think about those things. So this is hopefully something that will continue to refresh you, and we can offer you a checklist. So if you're interested in a checklist of things that you want to check out or want to keep an eye on a regular basis, definitely reach out to me and I can provide that list to you. Any other suggestions, Kevin?
Yeah, just one other real quick one. A lot of times we end up going into buildings that, and all the units are occupied. That's going to give us a little bit of extra time with that. And a lot of times we get in there and we realize that the tenant had no idea we were coming. Just from a communication issue. And I know that can only go so far as you being the buyer. If you happen to be the seller, it's very, very important that we're able to get in there and see those for that. The other thing is I often find that the building maintenance man, as we'll call him, a lot of times is living in the building. Maybe he gets a cut on rent or whatever. This often is probably not the guy to be doing some of the major fixes in your property. Get a licensed HVAC guy, get a licensed plumber, get a licensed electrician, because often, they may have a skill set in one area and know nothing about the other areas, but make those attempts on trying those repairs, and they end up actually going to cost you money, doing more damage, or possibly even creating a larger safety issue when you have people making repairs that just don't know what they're doing.
Great point. So yeah, definitely, because you can try to call yourself saving money by having a handyman do the work, and no disrespect to handyman, but if you've got to keep in mind you are in the public eye, if you will, and so people will know that you have property that you own, so that's maintaining it right. And so you may be trying to call yourself saving a couple of dollars, but then like Kevin said, the repairs weren't done right, and so now you just paid the handyman. Now you've got to end up calling the licensed technician to come in, the roofer or the HVAC person or the plumber or the electrician, when you could have done it the first time around and not have to cost yourself now dual money. So just those are tips to follow. Again, the opportunity to have a list, a checklist is available to you, so reach out to me, inbox me, and let me know. It's always worthwhile to consider. If you're considering even selling, let's consider also Kevin can come in and do what they call a pre-listing inspection, so you understand what are some of the things that are, if you will, needing attention on the building. So because that's going to be also a way to leverage how the next buyer could negotiate with you. So always be in control of the negotiations and the process, and the best way to do that is to know what's wrong with your property. Kevin had inspected a property for a client of mine. We ended up not purchasing the property, but the woman was an heir to the estate, and come to find out, electrical, plumbing, roof, everything was pretty much outdated, and it was going to cost the client a lot of money to maintain. I think it was like maybe $50,000.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of money. That the question is, do you have that in your pocketbook to do that later on? But to have so that from the perspective of that client, the seller, it would have been great for them to have done that, so then they now know how to control the negotiation. But then they could have been like, okay, well, I'm going to negotiate this price, but if they negotiate at even a lower price, but then now you come in and then there's a list of things that the inspector is flagging, and you need to, as a seller, do those repairs before the buyer's loan can get approved. Well, that just pulled money out of your pocket.
Yeah.
So be in control by doing a pre-listing inspection, or just have an inspection so that you know, again, what is to come or what is going to be potentially flagged in the buyer's inspection. So with all that being said, we provide a lot of great information. Kevin, as always, it's great to have you on the show. So If there's any questions, guys, offline, when you see this, catch this on the replay, definitely inbox me or reach out to Kevin. And I want to definitely have Kevin provide his contact information so you can get a hold of him.
Yeah, it's real simple. I'm pretty much easy to find on social media. 815-370-6644. Feel free to shoot me a text. Email, contact me through the website, any way you want. If you have any questions at all, be happy to answer them for you. Schedule an inspection, whatever you may need. And like a lot of inspectors, I also have a lot of resources that I reach out to in the trades that I trust very well. So if you have a question that I can't answer, trust me, I can find an answer for it, and it will be the correct one.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you again, Kevin.
All right. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. And you know how to get a hold of me. Inbox me or call me, 847-420-5923. Thanks again for always joining me, and your support is of valuable importance to me. Continue to share the videos and let anybody know that we're here to help empower and enrich you. So then the next couple of weeks, we're going to be, again, continuing to talk about the investment opportunities. We're going to talk about legal protection. We're going to talk about insurance protection, all those things that need to be encompassed when you're really considering buying a property, or you have property and you need to essentially protect yourself properly. So with all that being said, guys, thank you so much for joining me, and we will see you next week. Take care, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.